There is a specific kind of fear that has nothing to do with strength, size, or status, and everything to do with uncertainty. Human beings are not afraid of what they understand. They are afraid of what they cannot predict. This single truth explains why some people command a quiet, unspoken respect wherever they go, while others, despite being louder, more aggressive, or more forceful, never quite achieve the same effect. The moment someone becomes unpredictable in the right way, they become someone others instinctively hesitate to challenge. Why the human mind fears uncertainty more than confrontation. The human brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. Every interaction, every relationship, every social exchange is processed through an internal model attempting to anticipate what will happen next. This is not a conscious calculation most people are aware of, but it operates constantly beneath the surface, shaping how people decide who to challenge, who to avoid, and who to treat carefully. Robert Greene often explains that predictability is one of the greatest vulnerabilities a person can carry. When someone's reactions can be reliably anticipated, when their anger, their desperation, their need for approval can be triggered on command, that person becomes easy to manage. Their behavior has essentially been mapped, and once mapped, it can be manipulated by anyone who understands the pattern well enough to exploit it. Unpredictability disrupts this entire process. When someone's reactions cannot be reliably anticipated, the mental model others rely on to interact with them breaks down. This creates genuine discomfort because the brain cannot confidently predict outcomes, and that lack of confidence translates directly into hesitation. People do not challenge what they cannot confidently predict the outcome of challenging. Think about two different responses to criticism. The first person always reacts with visible anger every single time without exception. Colleagues, friends, and family learn precisely how to trigger this reaction and precisely what will happen when they do. The second person's reaction varies, sometimes calm, sometimes distant, sometimes met with an unexpected question that reframes the entire conversation. Nobody can predict exactly how this person will respond, and that uncertainty alone creates a natural hesitation before anyone attempts to provoke them again. Why consistency in composure creates unpredictability in outcome? This principle contains an important paradox. Being unpredictable does not mean being chaotic, erratic, or inconsistent in character. In fact, the most effective form of unpredictability comes from consistent composure paired with an unclear internal process. People can predict that you will remain calm. What they cannot predict is what happens next. What decision follows that calm? What action, if any, results from it? Robert Greene frequently notes that the most powerful individuals throughout history maintained a specific kind of consistency, remaining outwardly composed and difficult to read, while their internal calculations, strategies, and next moves remained entirely private. This combination, predictable composure paired with unpredictable strategy, creates a particularly effective form of respect because it removes the immediate emotional feedback people rely on to understand whether their actions have succeeded or failed. Consider someone who receives disrespectful treatment and responds with the same calm expression regardless of the severity of the offense. Observers cannot determine from this reaction alone whether the disrespect registered as minor and forgettable, or whether it registered as significant enough to result in a serious consequence delivered later, quietly and without warning. This uncertainty extends the discomfort of the provocateur well beyond the initial interaction, because they cannot confidently determine what, if anything, will happen next. This is fundamentally different from suppressing emotion entirely or pretending nothing affects you. It involves controlling which reactions become visible and which remain private allowing your external composure to remain consistent while your actual internal response and eventual decisions remain something others cannot easily anticipate. Why revealing your next move destroys its power. One of the most common mistakes people make when attempting to establish boundaries or respond to disrespect involves announcing their intentions before acting on them. Threats delivered in anger, warnings about future consequences, explicit statements about what will happen if certain behavior continues. All of these announcements remove the very unpredictability that would otherwise make the eventual response effective. Robert Greene often illustrates that the most effective consequences are rarely announced in advance. When someone states clearly what will happen if they are disrespected again, they give the other person exact information needed to either avoid triggering that specific consequence or to test whether the threat will actually be followed through. Either outcome weakens the position of the person who made the announcement because their power now depends entirely on whether they follow through on a publicly stated threat. Compare this to someone who says nothing about future consequences, yet consistently and quietly adjusts their behavior toward people who disrespect them, reducing access, reducing warmth, reducing availability without ever announcing this shift explicitly. The people experiencing this change cannot predict exactly what triggered it, cannot negotiate against a threat that was never stated, and cannot test the boundary because no explicit boundary was ever announced to test. This ambiguity itself becomes the deterrent because uncertainty about consequences is often more effective at preventing repeated disrespect than clearly defined consequences that can be calculated around. This does not mean deception or manipulation should replace honest communication in healthy relationships. It means recognizing that in situations involving genuine disrespect or attempted manipulation, explaining your exact response in advance often weakens your position rather than strengthening it. Why familiarity reduces fear, and fear requires distance. There is a specific relationship between how much someone knows about you and how much genuine unpredictability you retain in their eyes. The more consistently and completely you reveal your thoughts, emotions, reactions, and intentions to someone, the more thoroughly they come to understand your patterns, and the less capable they become of experiencing genuine uncertainty about how you will respond to any given situation. This explains why people who maintain some degree of privacy, even within close relationships, often retain a specific kind of respect that completely transparent individuals struggle to sustain over time. This is not about secrecy or dishonesty. It is about recognizing that certain aspects of your internal world, your deeper motivations, your private reflections, your genuine reactions to specific provocations do not need to be shared with everyone who requests access to them. Robert Greene frequently emphasizes that maintaining some distance, some privacy, some reserved dimension of self prevents others from developing complete confidence in their ability to predict your behavior. This reserved quality, when maintained consistently, becomes a subtle but persistent source of respect because it ensures that even people who know you well retain some uncertainty about exactly how you might respond in novel or challenging situations. Consider someone who shares every emotional reaction immediately and completely with everyone in their life versus someone who processes reactions privately before choosing what, if anything, to share publicly. The first person becomes entirely predictable over time, their emotional patterns fully mapped by anyone paying attention. The second person retains a degree of mystery even among those who know them well, because their full internal process remains partially private. Regardless of how much surface-level information they choose to share, how this principle applies Without becoming manipulative, it is important to distinguish this principle from manipulation, deception, or intentional cruelty. The goal is never to confuse or harm others through calculated unpredictability, designed purely to control their emotions. The goal is to recognize that certain forms of complete transparency, particularly around your reactions to provocation or disrespect, often work against your own interests without providing meaningful benefit to genuine relationships built on trust. Healthy relationships still require honesty, vulnerability, and clear communication, particularly when addressing genuine misunderstandings or conflicts with people who care about you. This principle applies specifically to situations involving disrespect, manipulation, or attempts to test your boundaries, where complete transparency about your internal reactions and future responses often invites further testing rather than discouraging it. The distinction lies in recognizing which relationships and situations benefit from openness and connection, and which situations benefit from maintaining a degree of unpredictability that protects your position rather than exposing it unnecessarily. Wisdom involves knowing which approach serves you in each specific context, rather than applying either principle universally regardless of circumstance. They fear what they cannot predict because uncertainty removes their ability to calculate outcomes with confidence, and without that confidence, hesitation naturally follows. This is not about becoming manipulative, secretive, or dishonest with those who genuinely deserve your trust. It is about recognizing that complete transparency, particularly toward those who might exploit it, often weakens your position rather than strengthening it. When your composure remains consistent while your internal calculations remain your own, you create a specific kind of respect that loud, transparent, easily understood individuals rarely achieve. Once you understand this principle, you begin to see that unpredictability, used wisely and combined with genuine composure, becomes one of the quietest yet most effective forms of protection available in any human interaction.